The reading of the will. The conference room felt unusually cold. As the family gathered around the long wooden table, the attorney, Mr. Colton, opened a thick envelope and prepared the documents with steady hands. His calm movements contrasted sharply with the tension building in the room. Jamin sat stiffly, unsure why his heart was beating so fast. Across from him, his sisters, Seren and Showoo, exchanged looks filled with unease. When the attorney finally began reading, every breath in the room seemed to stop. He announced that the entire $800 million would be inherited solely by Jamin. Seren's expression froze as though she couldn't process the words. Showoo leaned back in her chair, her shock quickly shifting into visible anger. Jamin lowered his eyes, unable to hide his confusion about his father's decision. The attorney explained that there were no additional notes or clarifications attached to the will. He then moved on to outline the legal procedures that would follow after the announcement. "This doesn't make sense," Seren said, her voice trembling as she leaned forward. "We were with Dad just weeks ago," Showoo added, her tone sharper and louder. Jamin looked at them, trying to calm the escalating emotion in their voices. He told them there had to be a reason their father made this choice, even if they didn't yet understand it. Seren shook her head, refusing to accept the explanation without a fight. Showoo crossed her arms and said she would demand an investigation into the will immediately. The attorney maintained his professional tone and reminded them that contesting the will was their legal right. He also advised them to gather evidence if they believed the decision was made under questionable circumstances. Seren stood abruptly, anger rising with every word that had been spoken. Showoo followed, pushing her chair back, as if she could no longer stay in the same room. They walked out without another glance at their brother, their footsteps echoing down the hallway. Jamin remained seated, staring at the will as a heavy, unfamiliar responsibility settled onto his shoulders. The sisters prepare for battle. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the law office, as Seren and Showoo stepped inside with determined expressions. They sat across from Attorney Miller, a seasoned specialist in inheritance disputes. He listened carefully while the sisters explained their disbelief over their father's will. Miller asked detailed questions about their father's health. In the months before his death, Seren claimed their father had shown signs of memory lapses, even if she had no clear proof. Showoo supported her statement and insisted that something had been wrong. The attorney nodded slowly and suggested that diminished mental capacity could be grounds for a lawsuit. He explained that medical records, witness statements, and behavioral evidence would all be necessary. Seren tightened her jaw, already calculating who she could contact to build their case. Showoo agreed to revisit people connected to their father, who might speak on their behalf. The attorney handed them a list of documents and names they would need to investigate. He warned them that winning would require demonstrating real instability, not just suspicion. "We'll find what we need," Seren said as she folded the papers with controlled tension. Showoo added that their brother must have influenced their father in some way. The attorney suggested caution, reminding them that false claims could weaken their case. Seren responded that she knew how to handle people who tried to hide the truth. They left the office and immediately began visiting individuals who had known their father. Some declined to speak, uncomfortable with criticizing a man they had respected. Others appeared nervous, sensing the intensity behind the sisters' questions. Eventually, the sisters persuaded a former accountant to sign a statement about the father's stress and confusion. Seren considered it a victory, even though the statement was vague and speculative. They next approached a retired company worker, who reluctantly agreed to confirm the father had seemed forgetful. Showoo felt they were finally gathering momentum. Despite the questionable nature of the testimonies, by evening, they had collected enough material to satisfy their attorney. They returned home certain that a legal challenge was not only possible but winnable. The hidden files. The evening rain tapped steadily against the windows. As Jamin sorted through his late father's study, stacks of documents filled the drawers, yet none explained the will that shook the family. He opened a lower cabinet and noticed a small metal safe, tucked behind old folders. Its placement suggested his father had wanted it hidden from casual eyes. Jamin entered a familiar passcode and heard the latch click open. Inside lay a single USB drive and a folded note with his name written carefully. He felt a wave of unease as he unfolded the paper to read the brief message. The line hinted that the truth was something he needed to discover on his own. The weight of that message made him realize his father had anticipated the conflict. "I don't understand. Dad, what were you trying to tell me?" he whispered to the empty room. He slipped the USB into his pocket, still unsure of its significance. Later at the attorney's office, he plugged it into a secure computer to examine it. The first audio file revealed his father speaking in a tired but steady voice. He described worries he had hidden from his children, hinting at a deeper plan. Jamie felt both startled and relieved to hear the clarity in his father's tone. The emotional weight of the recording made the room feel painfully silent. "I knew you wouldn't leave things without a reason," he murmured under his breath. He tried opening the remaining files, but each requested a password he didn't have. The attorney suggested consulting a digital specialist to unlock them safely. Jamie agreed, realizing the files might hold the explanation he desperately needed. He left the office with a renewed sense of urgency and a stronger resolve. Whatever his father had prepared, Jamie knew it was meant to reveal the truth. The digital investigation begins. The digital forensics lab hummed softly as Jamie handed the USB to the specialist. The analyst, Drive, Keaton, examined the device with a practiced eye before connecting it to his system. He explained that encrypted files could take hours, or even days to decode safely. Jamie nodded, knowing he had no choice but to wait for the process to unfold. With time to spare, he decided to visit Mira, his father's longtime secretary. She welcomed him with a somber expression, already guessing why he had come. Mira described how his father had spent recent months organizing documents in unusual detail. She mentioned that he often stayed late, sorting through old records with clear intention. Her words suggested a man preparing for something important, rather than losing clarity. Jamie listened carefully, understanding that this contradicted his sister's claims. Mira added that the chairman always worried most about the tension between his children. He left her office feeling a deeper awareness of how much his father had tried to prevent conflict. "I wish you had told us directly," Jamie said quietly as he walked toward the building exit. He then visited the apartment complex where his father had lived alone. The security desk provided logs of every place his father had gone during the final months. One location stood out: a charitable foundation he had visited repeatedly. The foundation staff recognized Jamie immediately when he arrived. At their office, they explained that his father had made substantial anonymous donations for years. They also mentioned that he had recently delivered sealed documents to the director. The revelation hinted at a broader plan far beyond a simple inheritance choice. Jamie sensed these visits were connected to the encrypted files, waiting to be unlocked. He retraced his father's last steps, hoping the pattern would reveal some hidden message. The day ended with more questions than answers, but also a growing sense of direction. As he left the foundation, Jamie realized he was following a trail his father had quietly prepared. The sisters strike back. Morning headlines splashed the inheritance dispute across every major news site. Seosayeon and Showwoo stood before cameras, presenting themselves as wronged daughters seeking justice. Reporters eagerly recorded their claim that their father had not been of sound mind. Jamie watched the broadcast from home, feeling the pressure mount by the minute. His phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from colleagues, urging him to issue a statement. He ignored them, focusing instead on the evidence he hoped would soon be decrypted. Meanwhile, the sisters held a second briefing, accusing Jamie of manipulating their father. Online forums picked up the story, spreading rumors faster than Jamie could track. A trending post even suggested he had isolated their father. During his final months, Jamie's attorney recommended hiring a crisis management team to control the narrative. Jamie declined, believing the truth would speak louder than any carefully crafted statement. He refused to counterattack, unwilling to turn the conflict into a public spectacle. "This will get worse if we don't respond," the attorney warned during a tense meeting. Seosayeon and Showwoo, however, escalated their strategy by contacting former company executives. They pressured the board to question Jamie's leadership and demanded a review of his authority. Some directors voiced concerns, fearing continued controversy could damage the corporation. Jamie attended the emergency meeting and defended his position with calm restraint. He explained that the inheritance conflict had no bearing on the company's operations. The board postponed any vote, waiting for legal developments before making decisions. Seosayeon interpreted the delay as an opportunity to intensify their attacks. She leaked internal documents, implying Jaemin planned to restructure the company for personal gain. The accusations caused brief turmoil in the market, shaking investor confidence. Despite the turbulence, Jaemin maintained his silence, steadfast in his decision. He believed the moment of truth was approaching, even if no one else could see it yet. The USB unlocks its secrets. A call from Drive. Keaton came early in the morning, breaking the silence in Jaemin's apartment. The specialist reported that the encrypted files had finally been decoded overnight. Jaemin arrived at the lab quickly, bracing himself for whatever he was about to learn. Drive. Keaton opened the first recovered video, showing his father seated at his old study desk. The chairman appeared tired but fully alert, his posture firm and deliberate. He spoke about the growing strain between his children, and his fear of future disputes. The clarity of his tone left no doubt about his mental stability during the recording. Jaemin felt a rising tightness in his chest as he watched the familiar voice fill the room. The second video detailed financial difficulties his daughters had faced in past years. His father described how he had secretly covered their losses to prevent them from falling apart. A third file exposed his deeper worries that money would continue dividing the family. The organized structure of the recordings showed careful planning, rather than declining judgment. "I made arrangements, stronger ones this time," his father said in the fourth video. He mentioned a system designed to prevent future conflict, though details were unclear. The fifth file contained references to legal documents, stored separately for safekeeping. Drive. Keaton paused the playback and handed Jaemin printed summaries of the metadata. He pointed out that the videos were recorded within weeks of each other, disproving instability. Jaemin stared at the dates, recognizing connections to places his father had recently visited. The consistency of the entries suggested deliberate sequencing, not confusion. Another folder held lists of charitable accounts and scheduled transactions. The information implied that the chairman intended Jaemin to manage more than personal assets. Drive. Keaton informed him there was one final file, an audio note containing coordinates. Jaemin listened carefully as his father recited the numbers. In a calm, steady voice, the message ended with a quiet assurance that the truth would someday make sense. Jaemin left the lab feeling the first clear direction he'd had since the conflict began. The hidden trust revealed. The coordinates from the audio file led Jaemin to a small private vault facility on the outskirts of the city. He signed the visitor log and followed an attendant through a narrow hallway, lined with reinforced doors. The vault number matched the sequence his father had recited, confirming he was in the right place. Inside the room, he located a metal safe identical to the one in his father's study. The key provided by the facility matched the lock perfectly. Opening it with a clean click, documents wrapped in protective sleeves filled the interior, arranged with deliberate precision. On top, a thick envelope labeled Contingency Trust drew his immediate attention. He opened it carefully, scanning the first page that detailed instructions for distributing assets. The trust assigned equal funds to Seosayeon and Showoo, but with strict behavioral conditions attached. A clause stated that any legal challenge against the inheritance would void their entitlement. Additional folders contained dated records of financial help previously given to both daughters. Each entry included bank statements and notes explaining why. The chairman intervened. Jaemin read the files slowly, feeling the weight of decisions his father had faced. The documentation outlined repeated conflicts Seosayeon and Showoo had triggered over money. Another set of papers included psychological evaluations, suggesting chronic rivalry between the sisters. The meticulous detail proved his father had prepared the trust with long-term family stability in mind. A sealed envelope marked for Jaemin only lay beneath the stack of documents. He hesitated before opening it, unsure of the message waiting inside. The letter expressed his father's belief that Jaemin was the only child capable of managing the conflict. It also urged him to protect the family name without harming his sisters. Jaemin folded the letter carefully, feeling both responsibility and sorrow settle in his chest. He gathered the documents and placed them back into the safe for temporary storage. Before leaving, he requested official copies from the facility, to present in court if necessary. Stepping out into the cool evening air, he understood that revealing the trust would change everything. The confrontation with his sisters, Jaemin requested a private meeting with Seren and Showoo, hoping to avoid further public escalation. The sisters agreed, but chose a cafe crowded with reporters lingering nearby. As soon as Jaemin arrived, Seren's expression hardened with visible hostility. Showoo tapped her fingers on the table, impatiently, signaling she had no intention of listening calmly. The atmosphere grew tense, as surrounding customers watched the family with curiosity. Jaemin suggested moving to a quieter place, but the sisters refused to relocate. He reached into his briefcase, prepared to offer clarity about their father's intentions. Before he could speak, Seren accused him of hiding financial documents to secure the inheritance. Showoo added that they would not back down until the truth was exposed in court. Their agitation drew the attention of nearby journalists, who began filming discreetly. Jaemin sensed the situation, spiraling, and closed his briefcase without revealing its contents. He realized the public setting made meaningful conversation impossible. "We're done negotiating," Seren declared, rising from her chair with sharp resolve. Showoo stood as well, stating they already had new evidence supporting their claim. Jaemin saw the determination in their eyes and understood they had no interest in reconciliation. He tried again to urge calm, but the sisters dismissed him with cold certainty. They left the cafe immediately, surrounded by reporters eager for statements. Outside, Seren addressed the cameras, claiming Jaemin refused to cooperate. Showoo hinted that hidden motives would soon come to light through legal action. Their statements quickly spread online, amplifying the public divide within the family. Jaemin remained inside the cafe, absorbing the weight of the failed meeting. His attorney later advised him to use the trust documents in the upcoming trial. Jaemin hesitated, knowing the consequences would be severe for his sisters. By nightfall, he resolved to reveal the truth, but do so without personally attacking them. The courtroom battle begins. The courthouse lobby buzzed with reporters as the first hearing drew national attention. Jaemin walked past the cameras, quietly, avoiding eye contact with anyone who shouted his name. Inside the courtroom, Seren and Showoo sat with rigid posture. Beside their legal team, their attorney organized a stack of medical records, preparing to argue diminished capacity. Jaemin took his seat, feeling the weight of every spectator's gaze settle on him. Judge Harmon entered, calling the session to order. With an even, controlled tone, Seren's attorney presented their central claim that their father lacked proper judgment near the end. He submitted testimony from individuals who claimed the chairman showed signs of confusion. The judge reviewed the statements carefully, noting inconsistencies in how each witness described events. Jaemin's attorney countered by questioning the credibility of the gathered testimonies. He argued that several statements were obtained through pressure, rather than honest recollection. A murmur ran through the courtroom as this possibility came to light. "We have additional evidence to submit," Jaemin's attorney said as he stood. He played a portion of the decrypted video, showing the chairman speaking clearly and coherently. The judge observed the footage with focused attention, assessing the chairman's mental state. The clarity of his voice contradicted the accusations of cognitive decline. Seren shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Showoo with growing unease. Their attorney attempted to argue that a single video did not prove overall stability. Jaemin's attorney responded by presenting timestamps, indicating the recordings were recent and consistent. The judge acknowledged that the father appeared lucid and deliberate. During the recording, he requested both sides prepare further evidence for the next session. As the hearing ended, reporters outside speculated that the momentum had shifted toward Jaemin. Seren exited the courthouse swiftly, avoiding questions from the press. Jaemin left quietly, sensing that the decisive moment was approaching, but not yet arrived. The trust that changes everything. The second hearing began under heavier scrutiny as the courtroom filled to capacity. Jaemin entered with a calm but resolute expression, carrying a sealed folder under his arm. Seren and Showoo appeared tense, whispering with their attorney before the session started. Judge Harmon reviewed the agenda, requesting any new evidence from either party. Jaemin's attorney rose and presented the envelope containing the contingency trust. He explained that the document had been secured in a private vault, designated by the chairman. The judge unfolded the pages, carefully, scanning each clause with deliberate attention. A hush fell over the court as he reached the section detailing behavioral conditions. The terms stated that any legal challenge against the inheritance nullified the daughter's shares. The courtroom reacted immediately, whispers bouncing between spectators in disbelief. Serin's face drained of color as she realized the implications of the clause. Shou-woo clutched her hands tightly, her confidence unraveling with each passing second. "This can't be valid," their attorney insisted, requesting time to examine the document. Jaemin's attorney provided certified vault records, verifying the trust's authenticity. He added that the chairman had created the trust to prevent exactly this kind of conflict. The judge noted the consistency between the trust and the recently reviewed video evidence. Serin rose abruptly, declaring they intended to withdraw their claim immediately. Judge Harmon reminded her that the act of filing the lawsuit itself triggered the condition. Shou-woo's breath caught as she understood their entitlement had already been forfeited. Their attorney attempted to argue technical exceptions, but the judge dismissed them. The ruling confirmed the trust as legally binding and fully enforceable. Jaemin remained silent, his expression steady. As the decision echoed through the room, reporters outside began broadcasting the outcome. Before the hearing even concluded, the judge ordered the trust to be executed, under Jaemin's management as originally intended. Serin and Shou-woo sat motionless, absorbing the consequences of a battle they could no longer win. Aftermath and reconciliation. The courthouse steps grew quiet once the reporters dispersed, leaving Jaemin alone in the fading light. He took a slow breath, feeling the weight of months of conflict finally loosen from his chest. Over the following weeks, he dedicated himself to organizing the charitable foundation his father admired. The staff welcomed his steady leadership, noting how closely he followed the chairman's values. Meanwhile, Serin avoided public attention and withdrew from social circles to reflect on her actions. Old business partners contacted her, encouraging her to rebuild her career with clearer priorities. Shou-woo, shaken more deeply, consulted a therapist to address long-standing resentment and insecurity. Her sessions revealed patterns of rivalry and fear that had shaped much of her adult behavior. As time passed, both sisters gradually recognized how their choices had led to painful consequences. One morning, Jaemin drafted letters, inviting them to join him in honoring their father's legacy. He wrote with sincerity, asking them to rebuild the family, instead of dwelling on the conflict. He mailed the envelopes and waited quietly, unsure how they might respond. Serin replied first with a short but heartfelt message, acknowledging her mistakes. She expressed regret for letting anger guide her decisions and thanked Jaemin for reaching out. A week later, Shou-woo sent her own letter, admitting she had allowed fear and envy to consume her. She explained she was trying to change and hoped they could meet when ready. Jaemin invited them both to visit their father's resting place. On a clear spring morning, Serin arrived early, carrying a bouquet of white lilies in trembling hands. Shou-woo joined soon after, her posture stiff, but her expression sincere. Jaemin greeted them gently, giving them space to approach the headstone together. The three stood side by side in silence, each reflecting on the journey that had brought them there. Serin whispered an apology to the inscription carved into the stone. Shou-woo placed a hand on the grave, promising to live more honestly than before. Jaemin stepped forward and rested his hands on both their shoulders, guiding them closer as a family.